for us so that we also can help support our kids in their social and emotional development?
Monique's regretting her chair, where she's at today. Well, first of all, as grandparents, what a fun time for all of you to be able to just enjoy your grandchildren in special way. And I think Monique and I would both emphasize when we were thinking about grandparents, like you are this person that's so special to them that can provide that listening ear and give that unconditional place for them to talk about who they are. But today, I'll really get back to your homework, your activity today. One of the important things you can do as a grandparent for their social and emotional development is to really normalize conversations about feelings, just as we did in this activity, and be transparent and clear about that you also face challenging times and how you deal with it. Like you might say, well, I was really anxious about going to that upper school campus and finding my way around today, but I took a walk, or I took some deep breaths, or I found somebody there who helped me, and that was great. I felt better about it. So it's okay to have those conversations because you are a model for them. You also have some really great life experience. So what can seem like a really big challenge to them can be related to something that you faced and you overcame. So sharing some of those positive stories and what you learned from it, especially a setback or disappointment, can be really, just really powerful for them. And the other thing is that, as a parent myself, some of our, we try so hard to fix things for our children. And I think grandparents have that same inclination. You have a problem, I'm going to help you fix it. But using questions like, well, what's worked in the past when you face something like that? Or what are some things that you're considering? What are some strategies or what are some ways you're thinking of handling that? And listening to them, that really builds their self-confidence, it empowers them, it reminds them of past challenges that they faced and been successful, and then they're ready and they're using their problem solving to move forward independently.
Those are such great tips. Honestly, I think I wouldn't have any more to add to that. The only piece I was going to suggest is I actually end all my human growth and development talks with this. Make a date with your grandkids. To me, that has been, and maybe it's my marriage and family therapy background, we're systems people, right? We're created to want and need each other. We're social beings. And one of the things that can happen in your grandkids' lives, especially at a school like Parker, where it's an intense academic achieving environment, is you don't see your grandkids. So I think if you could take over picking up from sports practice once a week or driving them home from school if they're not driving, if you're under 16-year-old kids, make a date with them. Have them introduce you to boba tea. It's really disgusting, but it might be something they could introduce you to. You haven't tried it before. They love that stuff. I don't know why. So I would really encourage that. The tips that Megan gave and just making a date with them. If you could see them once a week and just mom and dad would probably be grateful to be off Uber duty for a day and have you drive them home from practice. And sometimes, as you probably know from your own children, the best conversations happen in the car. So providing that time with them is really critical. I think they'll find they'll be knowing a lot more about them.
And questions, if anyone has questions, don't forget to write them down. Cher's going to grab them. So I'm going to actually have Megan start this one. Some of you might have heard about restorative practices, and that's something that we're implementing here at Parker, and very much a part of student health and wellness. So can you speak a little bit to restorative practice? Oh, you switched on me. Oh, okay, well, I can audible. All right, I'm going to give this one to Monique.
You haven't rehearsed enough. So I think before I answer about what restorative practices are, I want to start with a question to our audience. Show of hands, how many of you got into a little bit of shenanigans during your school years? True. Okay, shenanigans and true. Thank you. How many of you still do? I love that. Absolutely. Well, if I were to ask you how those little incidents of, getting out of line might have been managed in your school, my guess is it could have been anywhere from like corporal punishment, quite honestly, in certain generations, to kids will be kids and blowing it off completely, right? And then everything in between. And just so you know, kids are still getting into shenanigans, and guess what? They always will, and they always have, because it's part of our development. Believe it or not, learning boundaries is the most critical piece to our development. And that's what happens when we're learning boundaries. We're pushing boundaries and we get ourselves in some trouble. The approach in which discipline and those kind of getting out of line incidents occur at Parker, our knowledge and our understanding of how to deal with those incidents have changed drastically in the last 50 years. And Parker's adopted a really amazing approach that I love. It's called restorative practices or restorative justice to how we manage not only disciplinary situations, but also just in the way we build our culture. And Megan mentioned responsive classroom is all part of restorative practices. And what restorative practices do, what we found is that punishing poor behavior, we lost every opportunity to learn. We lost every teachable moment because all we did was punish. No one got to reflect, no one got to talk, and no one got to heal the harm. And those three principles are the principles of restorative practices: communication, community, and healing the harm. And so that is how we now approach discipline. It's been the whole faculty has been trained all last year. Every one of our professional development days, we're done learning restorative practices, which center around what Megan mentioned at lower school, circle times, checking in with students every day to see how they're doing. When there is an incident, students are asked to reflect. I actually give reflection sheets. They're asked to reflect on what they did, who they harmed, and what they can do to heal that harm. And then we have a conversation with the people that were harmed, or maybe the group. Maybe it's an entire advisory has to do a restorative circle about what somebody said that hurt somebody else's feelings. So our approach has just really shifted so much to having it be a learning, teachable moment. And not only that, it's building our community, because restorative practice is two parts. It's not really reactionary, responsive to something that happened. It's also proactive. It's creating a community ahead of time where people feel so responsible for the community that you're just that conscience building, right? That they're stopping and hesitating before doing that. Who might I hurt? Right, Dee? You works with us hand in hand in this kind of work. So that's our approach to disciplinary and also just culture building, community building.
I think one of the most powerful things that we, the adults in the community, discovered during the professional development on restorative justice is the importance of us as the adults modeling that same behavior. There's this wonderful line that Colonel Francis Parker talks about literally the last thing he says in his book. He says, whatever we ask of the students, we must first become ourselves, right? Kids are watching, right? And they'll see. And so if we're saying building community, yet then they hear us as teachers gossiping or saying bad things about people, that actually undermines all the good work we're trying to do in the classroom. And so we really have to watch ourselves and be that model. And the one thing I learned too, a beautiful line, is that before I speak or any of us speak, ask ourselves three questions. Is it necessary? Is it kind? And does it improve the silence? And that's kind of what we as adults need to always have in mind, because it's hard. It's very hard to do. So I really appreciate all the work on restorative justice. So one of the things I want to hear a little more about is this commitment that Parker has as a rigorous academic institution to play. We talk a lot about the importance of play, and sometimes people think that those are mutually exclusive. Well, if you want to have a tough academic, rigorous college preparatory curriculum, there's no time for play. So can you talk a little bit about play and also about relaxation? And whoever wants it can have it. Okay, Megan.
Well, play is so important, and we've talked already about balance. And so this really is going back to our commitment to healthy minds and healthy bodies. So we know that it's really important for physical development to be, work hard and then have that break and have that time to play. We know that play, being fun, being with your friends, is a really important time out. Coming out of the pandemic where children lost so many social opportunities, we know that play is more important than ever. And we just know that play and stepping away from some of the things that we're doing that are exciting again, but a little challenging, gives us that opportunity to rest and reflect and be renewed when we come back to another challenge. So within the context of the academics, play is really important. And again, that goes back to how we normalize the time away from academics. And in fact, just last week in working with a teacher, we decided that students who were having some trouble focusing, part of that play was taking a mindfulness walk, a 5 senses walk. And that reminds students themselves when you're jumping back into the school year and it's been a lot, how important it is to have play and to do opportunities for play here as well, and encourage students to get involved in that way.
The only thing I would add to that is that Parker made a really bold statement to try to support your grandchild's playtime and rest time, and that they changed the schedule. We had a major schedule change 2 years ago. We actually started a half hour later, and it's a nationwide thing in many districts. It's certainly not just San Diego or just Parker, but not all schools have caught up with it yet. And so in doing that, students are getting an extra half hour in the morning before school starts, which was very accommodating for kids who do want to do any kind of stuff before school. They can actually don't have to start till 8:30. And I thought that was a really bold statement. And in middle school in particular, when I started here, I noticed this. Our middle school kids had no recess because they went from lower school and they had recess and PE built into their days, you might recall. They came to middle school and that wasn't. So with our schedule change, we installed a 20-minute recess for our middle school kids that provides them time to play. In between, they have a few classes, have recess, they call it break, and it's 1 for 1. And they go back, have another class, and they go to lunch. So I think those kinds of really listening to the needs and the necessity of having playtime and downtime. The only thing I would add, and Megan touched upon it, is that our teaching methods here are so progressive. I don't know if anyone popped into any of your grandkids' classes. The teaching is actually fun here. So though it's not just sitting around taking notes, it's so interactive. Desks are in circles and kids are moving and a lot of group work. And so I have to say that does add a dimension of education that maybe didn't exist when I was in school, with straight rows and raise your hand when you have a question. It's very different. It's very dynamic. So I think that provides a lot more play within each classroom period as well.
I remember when I first learned about social emotional learning, I was having a hard time wrapping my head around it. And a professional in the field said to me, Kevin, it's simple. Learning is social and learning is emotional because you're dealing with the kids. And it really helped me understand. So that what we have to do is we have to create environments, and we have to create lessons that attend to their social and their emotional needs and well-being. I remember when I was growing up and I was in high school, I guarantee you, if at lunchtime I was out playing around, messing around, my teachers would say, what are you doing? You're wasting time when you could be studying. But now we understand that that time is critical even for our high school kids, to the point where we actually put out those cornhole games and that smash ball, and they're on one, and when they're playing now, we walk by and we don't say they're wasting time. We recognize they need to burn some of that energy, have some social interaction so they can perform at their best, with the exception of the kids that are out there every single period. We get those guys. You know, there's a few of them. Talk about shenanigans, right? So I don't know if we have any questions out here. If not, I was going to maybe ask for a final thought, and then we will. Do we have a question? Hand it to Shara, and we will. She'll just decide who gets to answer it. Okay, good. And then, wonderful. Okay, I'm going to actually give these. So one is a comment and one is a question, and I think we should do both. What mental health challenges are paramount at Parker among students? And it's probably not just Parker, it's probably national. And the other is just a shout out, congrats on the exceptional support for the LGBTQ plus students. So I'm going to hand it here, and whoever grabs the mic gets the answer. Okay.
Yes, so thank you for asking that. Since pre-pandemic, we know that in recent years that we are seeing more and more students in our classrooms being diagnosed with things like anxiety and depression. And so for those of us who kind of feel a little longer, we've really seen that trend. And so certainly that's present in every environment. And that's where it's so important, as Kevin has said, that we normalize reaching out for support, because we want students to reach out for support early in when they're experiencing those types of feelings. So we do see more students reaching out for support, but that's what we want. We want to be busy because we want to have those conversations. On the positive side is that we also know one of the reasons we have this really strong commitment to social emotional learning and the choices that we've made about advisories and responsive classroom is that we know that those approaches to learning will reduce the number of students who actually experience diagnosable conditions. And for those students who do, they actually really have much better coping mechanisms that they carry with them into college and adulthood. So I think it's very dynamic. So certainly we are, as a world, seeing that more. But the students have an array of supports here, and our approach is there to really give students those strategies to manage their emotions and reach their goals.
Yeah, so I'll read another question. How do boys learn to respect girls, to learn to listen to what girls are saying, to learn boundaries, and to learn to respect them? And I want to respond to that probably in maybe a little less binary sense, because I think that's one of the things that we really try to educate our students about. It's really respecting humans, right? It's not such a binary response. And quite frankly, it's probably more often I see language within the same sex being as offensive towards one another as I do opposite sex, if that makes sense. So boys being more aggressive with boys, or girls being more aggressive with girls, whatever. So rather than responding from a binary sense, I think what I would rather respond to is how do we teach them to be respectful, period, right? And towards humans. And from our perspective, well, a few ways I want to respond. One is actually every year we talked about those life skill lessons at the beginning of this conversation. Every year, every division does a workshop on communication, effective communication, offensive communication. In fact, just last week on campus, we did a whole presentation on hate speech within our advisory programming. And so as we all collaborate with such a team, we collaborate in creating advisory lessons students meet in advisories twice a week that pertain to issues that come up. So what I can say off the top is, if there's a specific issue, please encourage that it's happening at school, encourage your students to share, because we are so quick and open to responding to that, and we have such a great team of people doing that. Well, I remember last year in middle school, there was an issue with gossip, and so I put together a gossip advisory lesson, and they did every advisory did a whole lesson on gossip and how damaging that can be. So I think how we learn to that, learning starts at home. I always say that we're partners with you and your kids who are raising your grandchildren. It starts at home, certainly how we respect and how we speak to one another, but we really build on those principles and those values here through advisory lessons. And we use our restorative practices, by the way. So I do this at least 3 times a year. I have a restorative session between 2 people who have said something, one offensive to the other. And that's where we use restorative practices, right? It's a tremendous opportunity. And that ends with, how can we go forward not having this harm again? So there's learning in that.
Well, there was 3. I just had to pick one. We've got others we gotta get to. Yeah. So we're running out of time. Yeah.
And if anybody has questions that we don't answer, we don't have time to answer, you can always reach out to us. Please do. We're happy to chat. We love to chat about this. I think I would just add that the idea of listening and respecting others starts very early, and it does start with, again, that adults modeling that too. So our teachers in the lower school are doing a book study this year, The Power of Our Words, and how using language is about respect and self-control and confidence. And then just what you've experienced today of making sure that there's equity of voice. We put a lot of thought into classrooms so that there aren't dominant voices and other voices that aren't heard and respected. And so by having things like community expectations, when classes come together and they develop for themselves, norms for the class, communication and respect are always a part of that. And then we do things to make sure that within certain groupings and ways that we approach learning, that students are heard, that they are listened to, and that they feel listened to.
And I just wanted to recognize our streaming grandparents, because they don't get the opportunity to ask questions, but if you do have questions, by all means, you can reach out to any of us. As they said, we love to talk about this. I think I might end with this question, because I think it's a really nice global question, and I'll see if I can answer it and then turn it over to you. But it's a wonderful one. It says, so how do you measure the success of these type of programs? Right? How do you know that they're working? And I think really there's 2 things. As you would measure any program, there's the qualitative and there's a quantitative. And there are ways that we can quantify the success of these programs, right? So we talk about normalizing the classrooms, ensuring that voices be heard. We can actually get some feedback from students and from faculty in the classrooms to see that this is actually working. And that's important. But in this space, we also have to be very comfortable with the value of the qualitative feedback that we get. We know that these programs are working because we are able to help kids. We're able to meet kids where they're at. We have increased the number of adults on campus over the last 10 years whose sole job is to support the social and mental health and well-being of our kids, to the point now where we have probably, about 10 full-time adults, and this is their job. And it's not because that there are more issues or more problems, but it's a recognition of our responsibility to support fully the student. I mean, that's what we're all here for. We're here for your grandchildren. And I actually think our further investment in this program is a measure of its success. And if you could add to that too.
I think I would just add that it is very qualitative. That I think is what we see day to day, aside from qualitative or quantitative, which I also love. But I had a student recently here at Barker come in and show me a new breathing strategy as a psychologist. That was what was working for that particular student. And so we know that students are listening and engaging and building these coping strategies so that they can be successful. And so seeing it in action really gives us the best evidence that it's working.
So I'm going to turn it back over to our illustrious couple, Joe and Bonnie, going to come up here. But thank you all so much for your questions and for your time and your attention. We really do appreciate it, and we're honored to be here.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Megan and Monique and Kevin for this wonderful discussion and for your commitment to the wellness of our grandkids and their, helping them through their struggles if they have any. And we'd like to present you with a little surprise, a little bit of chocolate for your participation. We really appreciate it. Yeah, chocolate is always good for your mental health. Thank you. Appreciate it. And I do want to say that one of our granddaughters, when she talks about her advisory, it's always, she just loves it. And she loves the time with her group and her advisor. So I think it's a great thing for the grandkids. Sorry, I just went.
You have to laugh.
Okay, and I want to thank everyone for being here and for the people that were streaming. Thanks for your time, and we're going to end the meeting with lunch for the people that are present today. So thank you very much. Yes, so out this way is lunch. Okay, thank you very much.